The following production is produced by the State University of New York College at Oneonta.
Good evening and welcome to another exciting edition of Inside Red Dragon Sports. Tonight we're going to spend time with a couple of students here at the college who cover Oneonta State athletics kind of from an insider's perspective. They become our adopted voices of the Red Dragon as they do our webcasts all year long, basketball, soccer. Matt Falkenberry, Sean Engel will join us in studio, so please join us after the break and we'll spend some time with Matt and Sean.
WUOW 104.7 FM is the region's premier radio station, offering award-winning programming from National Public Radio and Pacifica Radio networks, giving you the chance to become more informed about the arts, information, and entertainment from around the country and around the world. WUOW is your community radio station. Join us and support the sound.
Welcome back. Joining me now in studio, kind of the voices of Oneonta State sports now, Matt Falkenberry and Sean Engel. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us here.
Well, let's have a little fun for the next half hour talking about O State sports. You guys kind of came to us a couple of years ago. First, why don't you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into the meat of the conversation.
Well, I'm Sean Engel from Nassau County, Long Island, and Mass Comm major here at SUNY Oneonta, graduating in May of 2010.
Matt Falkenberry. I'm from Hartsdale, New York, which is in Westchester County. I'm a Mass Comm major, and I'm graduating also in the class of 2010. And I transferred here from Plattsburgh for my sophomore year, so I've been here 3 years.
Okay, well let's get into it. Yeah, a couple years ago we were looking to get our games webcasted, you know, trying to get our name out there and get a little more exposure for our student athletes, and working with Dave Geezy and all. And you guys kind of came forward and took on the challenge, because it is a challenge. I mean, you know, it's a great experience to get as a student here, as an undergrad, to, you know, put on your resume. But, you know, how did you guys kind of find yourselves to say, hey, let's go do this. Let's do this for the athletes and for the college?
Well, it's interesting, you know. Professor Geezy put up like a sign on the bulletin board that's outside the studios here, and it just says, looking for sports broadcasters. And I mean, it was just like, you know, anyone could sign up for it, and it was like, and the thing was that it was getting like no response. So the athletics program, you know, the games were being wet, you know, they could be put on the air, but nobody was announcing them, and it was kind of difficult. I mean, we really got a great program here, whether it's soccer, which has got a rich history, basketball, which, you know, is really up and coming. I mean, and baseball has always been a strong point here at the school. I mean, just those three sports in general. I mean, they had their moments, but they were too few and far between. The parents get to see them, alumni, potential recruiting. You know, they can watch the games and see how everything works out. So, you know, I went to Professor Geezy, and I kind of just threw my name into the ring, and, you know, he had a couple people, and eventually, like, you know, I took on the responsibility myself. I can't speak for Sean, but 2 years ago, to step up and say, hey, let's do this. Let's cover these games. I loved it. I have a lot of fun with it. And eventually it grew to the point where it is now, where it's being advertised as Game of the Week, and other sports are now getting covered that weren't being covered before. And it's grown leaps and bounds. And I'm just hopeful that in 2010 and in the future, that it continues to get even better. Because this school has got great television and radio coverage, and it should be used to its potential, and the athletics department is one way to get that potential out there.
Now, you say, well, first of all, you guys are doing a great job. We get phone calls from parents, alums, family, friends that all say, hey, it's great to have these games on. So certainly the service and what you guys are doing is certainly doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you first before we go further.
Oh, you're welcome.
For you, Sean, you're kind of like the analyst guy. You have all the stats and numbers that get filled in. I mean, actually, you probably know more stats and numbers for games. I'm sitting in the press box at a soccer game and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. You know what I mean? So, like, give us your take on some of this stuff.
Well, with the analyst, I mean, I like to go just through every team's roster. I go over to the other team's websites and just break down their stats and say, this is how many goals this person has, assists, points, rebounds, whatever sport it may be. And it's just, I like it. I like going through and looking at the stats and seeing who their better players are, and maybe not and then the not so good players, I guess you can call them. But I mean, I just enjoy stats and all the information that goes into sports.
So you're kind of like the numbers guy. See, behind every good play-by-play guy, there's always a numbers guy.
Oh, and it helps out. It helps out considerably because, you know, you go into a game and sports is always about numbers. You know, you remember certain games about certain players. Michael Jordan scored 55 points against the Knicks. Everyone remembers that, the double nickel. It's, you know, that's why some people always say, oh, you got to remember the intangibles because it's always about the numbers. He broke out a stat about Lauren McGee, soccer player. We're doing Buffalo State against Oneonta this season, and he told me that she had scored a goal on the same day against the same team on the road last year. Well, Lauren McGee scores 2 goals against Buffalo State this year here at home, and it was like, you know, wow, and I put that into the broadcast. It said, I mean, the call was, I said to her, happy anniversary, you scored again, same day, same team, and because he knew that stat and brought it to my attention, made the call a little bit more than just, hey, she scored. Right. It adds a little juice to it, and stats are so important, especially in sports like basketball. I mean, because numbers are everything. Fouls, points, rebounds. It's so key because, you know, if a guy is not having a good shooting day, you can say, hey, he's 0 for whatever, and people go, oh, man, you know, he's not shooting well. And you bring that into the broadcast, and guys like Sean who bring that in, it makes my job a lot easier. It gives me stuff to talk about.
Right. Because
without the numbers, I mean, sometimes you'll go through dead air and you're lost.
Right. Now, when you guys first started doing this, I mean, like you said, I mean, we were doing live webcast without play-by-play. You know, Dave was giving it the ambiance and the, you know, pick up the field noise and the coaches talking and stuff like that. Did you see this as something that was going to be pretty difficult to start doing, or, you know, your familiarity with some of the sports and maybe some of the players? I mean, so in the beginning, you know, was there some apprehension or?
Well, I mean, for me, I had some experience when I was at Plattsburgh because I always tell people this, and for people who come to Oneonta and want to be broadcasters, remember this, and unfortunately we don't have this sport here. Hockey on the radio is the toughest sport to broadcast out of any sport possible because you have to keep talking and because the action is always moving. Basketball, they'll slow down. They'll do passing around. You can kind of feel your way through. Hockey is just everything. Pucks here, pucks there. So when I was at Plattsburgh, I had 2 women's games. The year they won the national championship, I covered 2 of their games on the radio, and I said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Everything else will be lower. It'll be easier. So I came and I did soccer, such a slow sport compared to hockey.
Right.
It made it a lot easier. Once I finally realized that, like, the toughest thing, and I can say this for another analyst, our other analyst, Greg Barra, says this all the time. He always gets nervous when the coaches hear us. That's probably the most nerve-wracking thing about broadcasting is that when we say something on the air, coaches are going to hear it. And if they don't like it, they may come to us and say, hey, what are you talking about? Now, luckily, that hasn't been the case because, you know, we don't do that kind of stuff. We're not on the air to rip. That's not the point. But that's probably our most nerve-wracking part of broadcasting for me was when the coaches are hearing it, the players are hearing it, and they're saying, what does this guy know? You know, I mean, I'm playing my butt off here, and he's sitting in a booth talking about me like he knows what I'm doing. You know, sometimes they don't like it. But it's worked out better, I mean, in the end. But to come in and do basketball was easy, and baseball because they're slower.
Right.
Because hockey on the radio, that's the toughest thing you can do. And I was a freshman doing it. I had never been on the air before when I was at Plattsburgh. So when I came here and started doing it 2 years ago, a piece of cake.
Yeah. Now, you guys go to classes with some of these kids that are on our teams. Do they come up to you and say, hey, nice job, or geez, you know, can you maybe talk a little bit more about this?
Well, with me, I mean, I'm usually just the lead analyst for women's soccer. Occasionally I got a men's soccer game in once in a while, but the women's players, they do. Some of the players did approach me and said, yeah, you know, I heard you guys in the announcing. It was a good job. And it's really rewarding from the broadcasting standpoint to hear that from the players and the coaches.
Right, because it'll just help you. Well, I mean, obviously, it's great to hear that, you know, you're doing well. What other kinds? Do they ever give you any pointers?
Not that I can think of right now, but I'm sure there are.
I'm sure they could think of a couple of things. I'll give you a quick thing. We do the National Junior College Division III Championship, and so this is not only related, but I made a comment about a player in a game as an analyst that I didn't think he could. He was a big guy. I didn't think he could get up the court and keep stamina for 4 quarters or 2 halves. The kid made a game-winning shot, not at the buzzer, but a shot that won the game for them late. He comes running up the steps to our booth and points at me and goes, "You don't think I have stamina? Well, I just showed you I have stamina." And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And to get him back, I threw him on the air. I gave him a headset. I said, I said, okay, come talk to us for a minute. And I interviewed them, but it was really funny. They heard the tape and they knew all about us. So, I mean, I thought that was probably the funniest, probably the most scariest thing is I'm like, oh my God, here comes this guy. He's going to come, say something to me like, whoa, I can't believe it. Because he was pointing at me from the court during a timeout. And, but at Oneonta, they haven't, although Vince Medici, the head basketball coach, I took one of his classes beginning basketball and used to joke around about my broadcasting and the nicknames that came up for his players and stuff. He used to tease me about it when I was playing ball. He'd be coming up with nicknames for me, trying to just, teasing me and stuff. But they're all great. The players and the coaches are awesome about it. And I think they love it. I mean, their Division III program in a small conference, I mean, it's the double whammy, really. So they don't expect to come to Oneonta. Recruits are not expected to be seen, but now they're national. Webcasting can be seen anywhere, and that's great for them because one day it may lead to something great for one of these players. It may not be tomorrow, but one day I think it's going to work out for them. And I think they respect the fact that we go out there and put the cameras in and do their games because, hey, it helps them. It can't hurt.
Right. Now you took a class with our women's soccer coach, Liz McGrail, this fall, and you always kind of had all the inside information. I mean, did that help? I mean,
well, that's part of the reason why I took the class. I remember telling Sean when I picked the class in the springtime, I said, I'm taking this class with her to learn the game better, to make my broadcasting better, to understand the game. I mean, if you had talked to me last year doing soccer, I'll admit, I had no idea what a flank service was. Now I know a flank service is when they serve the ball into the corners and try to kick it across. And I knew that, and she said in class, we try to get 20 flank services a game. Well, I would say on the air, they're trying to get into the corners. That's their game plan. That's what they want to do. It makes the broadcast so much better when you have that information because it makes people think. They go, they're inside the coach's head. Sports always has a Monday morning quarterback kind of thing going on with different players, with different coaches and stuff. They always want to be the coach. Well, if you give them an idea what's going on, then the speculation goes down, and then they can focus on that one point. So yeah, I learned a lot in that class, and it made my soccer broadcasting, in my opinion, a lot better and a lot more informative than just, oh, she passes here, she passes there. They shoot, they score, they shoot, it's saved. Made it a lot better, made it more informative for the parents, for their siblings watching, their friends and whoever else was watching the games, other teams and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure it helped them when they were trying to figure out stuff. But that's the way it is. You're trying to inform the folks. You're out there for them.
Right. Now, and again, practical experience. I mean, you guys are students here. You can take a class that's in our phys ed department, learn about a sport, like you said, to enhance what you're doing overall. So, I mean, I think as far as a practical standpoint, I mean, you guys are getting on-the-job training.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, you take coaching soccer, you take that into your broadcasting, and then it's 100% better. I mean, it's just more than just, you respect the game more. Soccer in the United States is disrespected, I think. I love the sport, and I loved calling it, and then taking her class and learning how to coach it made my love for it even more, which I felt, again, improved my broadcasting. And it helps people learn the game. What I'm telling them is just relayed information, and that's the point. That's why you hear broadcasters over the air say, when we talk to this coach and such, especially in a football game, because that's the idea. They want to learn. And if you don't learn this stuff, then your broadcasting is going to suffer, or it's going to be too bland and people are going to get bored.
Right. Now, from your perspective as more of an analyst type person, stats, numbers, how important is it for you to, be able to relate maybe to how the strategy of the game is being played, as opposed to, hey, so-and-so's got 42 points right now and it's a school record or something? I mean.
Well, I mean, with the stats, I mean, we brought it up one time that one of the players on the women's soccer team didn't have any assists at one point during the season, or her career, actually, and she's a senior.
Right.
So we said, she's got to make an assist this season, and she actually did that game that we said it, and it was really, it kind of blew our mind that it happened, because it hadn't happened before in her career.
You play 70, I think it was like 70 games over her career, and she was a defender, I thought one of the best in the conference. One of the first teamers or second teamers, and she'd never had an assist in her career. I mean, you would think maybe making a long pass from the back of from the defensive third, another thing I learned in class, the thirds, and you'd find a foot and eventually you'd get into the net. Right. It hadn't happened. All of a sudden she gets an assist in the game we're talking about it. I mean, that's sometimes the best parts of, that's why stats are so great. You throw it out there, all of a sudden it happens, and it's like, whoa, I mean, wow, and that interests people. I mean, that really does, that kind of stuff like that. I mean, people are going to sit there and go, wow, this player, she's played so well in a career, she's never had an assist.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then all of a sudden she gets one that's like, you know.
Right. We're talking about Melissa Vandenberg.
Yes.
Yes, Melissa
And I think she
Vandenberg.
actually ended up with three or four assists
Three or
this
three
year.
assists
Yep.
this season.
So
I mean,
she
so-
goes her whole 4 years. She was an all-conference player for us, first team, and then she actually, just today we found out she was an ECAC All-Star. So,
Oh, great.
So she's had, and we're hoping she's going to be an all-region player, which we won't know until Wednesday, today, later, or tomorrow. So, but yes, outstanding player. I mean, she was a great player for us for 4 years. Well, let's see. We just got through our fall season. I mean, we're into the winter, but we'll hold off a little bit. Fall season, anything for you? I mean, we covered a lot of men's and women's soccer games. We did do field hockey. What else did we do? We did
We did two
volleyball.
volleyball
Yeah,
as
we
well.
did 2 volleyballs as well. Anything, moments, memories, things that stand out, players names? I mean, we had quite a few good freshman volleyball players, a couple of good, I mean, we had a junior, Ainsley Stoll, who was player of the year in the SUNYAC for field hockey. So you got to see her play, and along with Catherine Kimberrick and some of the other younger kids. But any names or games that were considerably, maybe better than others to call or watch?
Well, we did the one field hockey game this year, and one player that stood out to me was Ashley Johnson, I
Yes,
believe.
yep.
She stood out to me, and she's a really good field hockey player.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have done more field hockey games. Unfortunately, the schedule, didn't work out that way because soccer, I mean, I like to think of it as like it's a network. Soccer takes the
Right.
cake. It's our sport. I would like to have done more field hockey. Volleyball, I didn't really know. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know the game very well. I didn't call those games. We had other students call those games. I was surprised how well they did because I didn't think of them as a really solid team. I thought they were more of just like middle of the road, kind of back of the pack in the SUNYACs. They made the playoffs. They played the best team, one of the best teams, and they didn't. They fell. And New Paltz was the best team in the conference, and they ended up winning it. So it wasn't like there was an upset and Oneonta could look back at this. I thought they really made great steps forward, and that team is going to improve greatly because they had some freshmen on there that really did well, and then there were 2 players that Boberka and LaGuardia just were like, I mean, they're really impressive.
Yeah.
But Oneonta volleyball's got a lot going on for them right now, and I think SUNYAC-wise, they're really gonna improve. I think.
Well, Boberka ended up being all-conference player for us as a freshman, and yeah, you're right. I mean, she can put the ball down, as we say in volleyball. I mean, she can. When she gets up there, she's actually going to compete for our track team as well.
Wow.
She's a high jumper and I believe a shot put or a javelin. So
the high jump works for
all-around,
volleyball for certain.
So we're looking forward to another great season out of her as well in track. So hopefully we can get her on.
And
talk
got
about
3 more
that.
years. I think she's going to set some records.
Yeah.
I'll go out and say that right now that she will put volleyball on its ear here in Oneonta, and it'll definitely get a lot more respect than it had in the past. Speaking of soccer, I mean, we did all those games. I mean, game 1 of the season for Oneonta to just throw up 10. Nicholas Gregg to score a hat trick, 4 goals in the game, which hadn't been done in a number of years. I mean, and that was just an impressive display. Trying to think of some of them. The Plattsburgh game for men. I mean, just speaking of the men right now, I mean, 0-0, overtime, double overtime, shootout. It's in the dark. We're going 8-9 rounds, physical, play and the whole thing. And it was just great game to watch. The Plattsburgh won it in kicks, unfortunately, in the end for Oneonta. But, I mean, that was just an amazing game to watch. And the fact that Oneonta was down to 10 men for 70-plus minutes in that game showed me a lot of heart. And that's a team that they've moved down from Division I. Now they're in Division III. They got their feet wet in Division III again. I think they are championship caliber material next season. And if they're not one of the favorites, I'll be surprised. They definitely can challenge Brockport for a championship. Brockport being a really good team themselves, making the finals last 2 years and winning it this year. Yeah. So men, I think that was my game of the year for the men. That was probably the most fun to call because I think those close games are the best.
Right.
And for the women, for me, I mean, the first one I did this year, was the rowing game.
Yeah.
And I had gone down to Glassboro last season for the NCAA tournament, so I knew a lot about rowing as it was already, and then to put it into perspective in the game, it was great experience.
Right, and Rowan only lost, they lost in the NCAA tournament, but they had only lost 1 game going into the NCAA tournament, and that was to us.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Here at the Mayor's Cup. Because they have that, that girl, 19 there, Jess Babick.
Yes.
She's Babis. She actually has 1 more year. She's only a junior. So, and they did have a good team. But again, I mean, our women are right there. I mean, I think we had a winning record against nationally ranked teams during the regular season this year.
If we made the Final Four, we played them. We didn't beat them, but we played them pretty tough.
Right.
I mean, they jumped on us early, but we played them tough for the rest of the way.
Right, in the College in New Jersey, and we only lost 2-1 there. And
on a controversial goal.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't like they beat us up and down the field by any stretch.
Right. So I mean, as far as our women's team goes, I mean, they're certainly, another year with another class. I mean, we've got great sophomores and juniors coming back next year, and I'm sure Coach McGrail will bring in, another talented freshman class. I mean, that's kind of the way we've been going. So
For sure.
I mean, I have to say this in an unfortunate way because we are on an Oneonta State show, but I would say the game of the year, other than Rowan, I think when Geneseo won that semifinal game and Oneonta State, had won so many soccer championships. They had been to the finals every year. And the only time they lost was in Brockport in the finals. They had been in the finals for like 10, 11 straight years in a row. And then they're here at home, and Geneseo somehow comes in here and pulls off that victory. I mean, from a broadcasting standpoint, you don't want to be a homer, so I have to say, unfortunately, I can't say that the game of the year was an Oneonta win. For me, broadcasting at Geneseo, upset for them to win it after Oneonta had been so dominant over those years. For them to come in here and win that game and then to beat Cortland the next day, that was really stunning to me. And those are the kind of games you remember. And for me, that was definitely the game of the year that I announced. If I had to say an Oneonta game that they ended up winning, probably Rowan. That was a really good one.
Great game.
Especially because Allison Swadowitz, whose name I had completely just destroyed before.
Early in that game, yes.
And I thank you for saving me because you said it to me in the press box. It's not what you said, it's Swadowitz. And she got 2 assists.
Yep.
And Brittany Riley scored 2 goals in that game. And that was like, they were down 1-0. They scored off a restart, Rowan did. And for them to come back and win that game. And they didn't win the Mayor's Cup because, Hartwick, they play like they stand still. So TCNJ ran all over them. They were going to win the Mayor's Cup. But Oneonta finished in second place and knocked off Rowan.
Yeah.
And you know what? They played Williams tough, too, in the tournament.
Absolutely.
Right.
So they did. Oneonta's women, I think, fell short of expectation in the end by not winning the SUNYACs. Hey, but they won an NCAA tournament game.
Yep.
And I think those girls, if they had a choice between one or the other, I think they'd take the NCAA tournament win.
For sure.
Right. To get into the second round and play a team like Williams, who's
and to play
undefeated.
them and was
Right.
up, was winning, and was tied for 80 minutes
Yep.
on the road. I mean, and of course the William Smith game,
Right.
which I
Yes,
didn't
that
personally
was-
broadcast, but I watched that game and 1-0 beat number 5.
Yeah. And
No
we-
matter how poorly William Smith played in that game, beat number 5 is still beating number 5. That's
Right.
great stuff.
Right. Well, let's look into the winter sports. We've got basketball, wrestling, track, swimming and diving, which swimming and diving is off to a pretty good start. We're 1-2 overall, but we won the North Country, both men and women. We've got some freshman swimmers who are already qualified for the SUNYACs and setting school records. I mean, we have one freshman, Kristen Magliola, who's already set school records in each of her events in just her first year. I mean, she just started. So is there, what are we looking forward to as we get into the winter?
Well, I mean, wrestling's 5-0. I mean,
Yeah.
off to a flying start, and they look like they're really just going through the pace and just they look really good. And I think that they've got a chance to have a special season. You don't get off the 5-0 starts by mistake. No one ever does. And that was something that really surprised me. And I think they've got a chance to really take a step forward and become a dominant team in the state. Swimming and diving, I always knew swimming and diving was a good. But as you just said, they're 1-2. As you just, it means you got to take the records with a grain of salt,
Right.
because it's mostly individual.
Yeah.
And like you said, they've had a swimmer already setting school records, and as a freshman, I mean, watch out. She's got 3 more years.
Right.
I mean, here we, watch out for the other schools. They're going to be in a world of hurt with this girl swimming for our team. Trying to think of something. Track and field has always been dominant. National champions last year in indoor,
Yeah.
the relay 4x400.
Yep, 4x4.
And they have national championships up in the booth. I walk by that room all the time with I forget the name of their head coach, but
Well, A.M.A. Dawson and Matt LaPiccolo.
right.
Yep.
They have all those trophies in there. They mean business, and they're going to continue to mean business. Again, national championships. There haven't been a lot of national championships won by Oneonta, but track and field is one of the places where they're gonna keep flowing. I really truly believe that those 3 sports, which unfortunately don't get won't get covered this year because basketball and of course winter vacation hampers that fact. They are still so good that if you're not following them, you're missing out on something special, especially swimming, diving, and track and field, because they have got a lot of people, young players who are just coming into their own and are going to really dominate. And again, 4x400 national champs. No school was better than us. So
Right.
I mean, you gotta like that from those three winter sports.
Right. What do you think we're looking forward to basketball? I mean, you guys are going to do every game pretty much, and we're going to do some full broadcast for the people out there who are going to watch for us. But what do you think for our basketball?
Well, men's basketball is off to a great start already, 3-0 on the season, and they got a bunch of good players on that team. You know, Michael Grimes is one of them. They've just got a great core of players right now. They're getting older, as Coach Medici said when he was on here, but I think he's going to start a good recruiting train from that Albany area, which I like to bring up in the broadcast all the time. But I think he's got a good core of players right now, and I think he can turn it into something really special here in the SUNYAC Conference.
Right. Now, what about our women? I mean, right now I think we're kind of transitioning with some young kids. We've been playing some players short. You know, Coach Thompson hasn't had her full arsenal, as we like to say, you know, yet. You know, as we look into the SUNYAC, where do you think we'll be? I mean, we've been in the top 3 or 4.
It begins and ends with the games against Cortland because they have been the nemesis for our women's team. They came in here last year and came back late to win a game. They lost to them last year up in Cortland. They've lost them like 7-8 times in a row. Playoffs, they've played them. Can't get over that hump. I mean, I think Daphne Thompson is just like so ready to beat Cortland. It'll be like a release of stress because it's like we play everyone really tough. We're one of the best teams. We just can't beat Lang and Cortland. We can't beat them. It's just like we got to get over that hump. And I think if they can, they're 0-3 because they're not healthy. Let them get healthy, and if they can play Cortland tough here at home and maybe get that win, the season could take off. If they don't get that win, I could be a little worried because they could have a down. They could feel down. I hope that's not the case. But if they can, again, for me, women's basketball begins and ends with Cortland. If you can knock off Cortland and get that monkey off your back, then I think the season could be a breeze and they could really make a huge mark in this conference. Remember, they've only played 3 non-conference games.
Right.
You kind of got to shake that off because teams have played non-conference schedules. We saw it in soccer. Poor non-conference schedule, or they can't win anything, and then in conference play they're dominant.
Right.
Or it could be the other way around. Potsdam Soccer, one of the teams was like 0-8-1 in conference play. They were 6-0, and they were 6-8-1 regular season.
Yeah.
But because they were 6-0 against non-conference opponents, you got to remember once the conference season starts, that's when the real stuff gets going.
That's when it counts.
That's when it really counts, and if they can get over Cortland, then they'll be good. Men's side, as long as they shoot their free throws, because they are not a good free throw shooting team, and I've told Coach Medici that, and he knows it. If they can shoot their free throws, then they'll be in business. I love Brian Beckford. He is an absolute animal in the middle. Rebounds, block shots, he does it all defensively for them. And they've got, Brian Hooks has now gotten used to that longer 3, which he struggled with early in the season last year. Now he's starting to get his game going. And Michael Grimes, I mean, when the big games come, and you can see it his numbers last year. In regular season play, he had 14 points average, around 14. SUNY he was 17, 18, 19.
Right.
He steps up when the game is on the line. And again, they were down 10 points to Ithaca with 4 minutes left. On the road, came back to beat them. I got a good feeling this team is going to go far, and the NCAA tournament is definitely a possibility for this team. Coach Medici told me 20 wins. That I think is a real good shot at. They got a good chance at it.
Right. With those kids coming back, I think that's, you know, because we had Vince on the show already to talk about his team and his season, and he, you know, he doesn't want to get so excited about it because he doesn't want to, you know, be disappointed as a coach might be if he doesn't reach those goals. But I think he's putting more responsibility on the kids. Like, take responsibility for this year. You know what I mean? Like, I'll help you get there, but you need to help me get there as well, as far as, you know, doing the extra stuff at practice or after practice. I mean, he talked about his off-season conditioning program, about how the kids really worked at it, and some of the kids came back in great shape. And like you said, Brian Beckford, you know, a little more serious. You know, last year was his first year. He really didn't know what to expect, a D1 transfer. You know, what's D3 basketball all about, you know? And he was. I mean, there were some games there. I mean, the one that stands out for me is the Buffalo State game last year.
Oh, yes.
Where he blocks the 2 shots in the final 10 seconds. We win the game by a point. And it's because really him. I mean, he had 23 points, 14 rebounds. I mean, it was just
had
a
the
monster
putback
game.
slam against Ithaca to send the game to overtime.
Yep.
I mean, it's unfortunate that he's not good from the stripe, and he missed the free throw, and then we ended up playing that game very tough, a ranked team, into overtime. But I'll never forget that putback slam. I mean, that was Ewing-esque. Patrick Ewing against the Pacers 15 years ago, it was the same thing, the putback slam, and they were so close to have that win. And that was the thing. I think this year, they're finally going to close it off. The gap is finally closed to this team. Their senior leadership is good enough, and I think they're ready to take off for certain. And again, 3-0, no joke.
Yeah, well, no, it isn't, because we played sort of 3 good teams. I mean, even William Patterson out of region, because of course we played them in men's soccer this year, and beat them here at the Mayor's Cup. But they came in, they have a very good athletic program as well. So that's a quality win, for our men's basketball team as it was for our men's soccer team. So anything else to add about? I mean, we're probably going to have you back maybe in the spring to talk a little maybe baseball, softball, or whatever. But as students here at the college, I mean, how much fun is it to be able to cover O State sports?
I think it's great because it's there isn't a lot of politics that go on with it. That's in regular broadcasting. You come, you get yourself set up. As long as you're prepared and you're out there and you get your voice clear. I'm here to help other students who are interested, who want to come and become broadcasters, who are on the student body. It's a lot of fun. The games are exciting. The crowds here are very good for what I've seen compared to other schools. It's exciting, and the games are good and the teams are really good. Oneonta sports is starting to get to the point where Cortland is not going to have the monopoly on dominance in the SUNYACs anymore. I think Oneonta is starting to get their feet wet and starting to really move forward in taking that dominance away from Cortland and becoming a really top-notch athletic program that's going to bring in the big-time recruits that would come to a Division III program. And on campus and living and being in this town, I love it here. It's really laid back. It's the fans are great. The parents are wonderful. They're really intense for sure. And I really have enjoyed doing these. And to be honest with you, I'm sad that soccer's over. I love doing that. I love doing the 2 SUNYAC games. And it's always been a lot of fun doing the broadcasts.
And for me, I think with the teams, I think it all starts with coaching. I mean, you've got a great group of coaches here, you go McGrail or Byrne or Furch and whomever it may be. It's a great group of coaches. It's a great school to come to. I enjoyed it. I transferred here from University at Albany. It was a great decision on my choice. I love it here. It's just a great place to study, to be, great people around, and it's just fun. I love it. Okay, well, we certainly want to thank you for coming by then, and keep being the voices of Oneonta State sports, and we certainly will have plenty of games for you to do coming up here with basketball season rolling along, and once we get into the spring, we'll do some baseball and hopefully maybe get some softball in there and some lacrosse games, because our 2 lacrosse programs are doing well, and think they'll be on top of things this year as well. So thanks for coming by today. Thanks a lot. All right, and we'll talk to you soon, I know. All right, thank you. Well, I want to thank Matt and Sean for coming by today as we talked about Oneonta State sports. And we'd like to thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Inside Red Dragon Sports.